Gentlemen, boy, I got a treat especial for you guys. We're gonna put on latex gloves because I want to limit how much oil from my human meat paws get transferred to this tube. I want to talk about this tube for a second. Let's get out the paperwork. You know, when you look at stuff on the internet, you have to understand that some stuff that's on the internet is current information. Then you have a situation like this where it's based off of a little bit of old school knowledge. So this is a ProTec 3cx15000a7. Okay. Let's get on in here and look at this tube up close. Let's make sure I got my exposure level just perfect on it. Now, the part that made me raise an eyebrow when I first saw this tube and laid eyes upon it was this little print that says "Made in the USA." You guys see that? The "Made in the USA" thing takes this from being I don't know if I want to run down this path or not, to, yeah, this kicks ass. So let me tell you the story about this tube. I am in Tucson, Arizona. Let me throw its cardboard container up here. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and I picked up an estate with one of my friends. And in this estate, this big, giant house full of all this radio equipment, sitting over in the corner with a good solid 4 inches worth of dust, was this box. Well, I saw the name and I saw the part number and I went, huh, interesting. And I immediately wrote it off thinking Chinese. We're gonna get to that. After I looked at a bunch of other stuff, I couldn't help but notice that this company is based out of Florida. And I went, wait a minute. ProTec, to me, means it is ProTec was a fairly decent distributor of tubes back in the 80s, 90s, and the very early 2000s. And they sold all kinds of tubes. If you're interested in their history, you can go to ProTec's webpage, which the last time I looked, which was about a month ago, was still up. And they give their entire company history. ProTec went and sold all of their sellers, all their buyer information to Richardson's. When Richardson's took it over, they bought up all of ProTec's old stock and then proceeded to liquidate it, and then started using the ProTec name on Chinese imported tubes. Those tubes have "Made in China" stamped on the side. This is an old tube, but it's never been put in anything. And when I mean never, I mean like it's never even been sat in a socket. It is what they call virgin. It's never been rebuilt. So then I take the numbers off the stem here. This 4889, and it's 1 3cx15000a7 on the bottom. And I take a picture of the stem and I send it off to my friend over at Econco. And I said, do you have any record of this anywhere in your system? And they came back and they said yes. And I went, oh, interesting. They were building these for ProTec, putting the ProTec name on them, and ProTec was subselling them. This thing has never been in anything. Now what I did when I got it here is I hooked it up and I checked for filament draw and it fell within spec. So I very quickly pulled the filament off of it and I thought, well, it might have outgassed a little bit. I wonder what it'll do on the high pot tester. So I dig out my high pot tester and first I slowly built up to 5,000 volts and it held it. So then I went, okay, let's go ahead, and we built up and we came up to about 15 and it held that. So I took it all the way to 25. That's where my high pot tester maxes out. It held it with no breakdown, no leakage. So I had well below 10% below on the voltage that it was looking for the current draw. This thing is in really, 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 really mint condition shape. So by chance, just by chance, we ended to come across a 3cx15000a7 built in America, sold by ProTec, ended up in Tucson, Arizona, and then sat in a box for about the last 20 plus years. This was actually built for a company called DC. It says so right in the paperwork. ProTec bought this from a company called DC. DC was buying them from Econco, come to find out, or iMac back then. But Econco's got a record of this tube, okay? And it was built in like 1999. So when I put it up against all my other tubes that I have here, the 15s, I'm like, wow, this is legit. The silver on this thing is spotless, except for this one little semi-dark little blemish here, which if we zoom in on that, if I wanted to, I could probably polish out. This is where somebody touched it with their finger at some point and left a little bit of finger sweat on it. But look at this. There's a tiny little surface scuff that's across the top of the bell of the anode. So if you guys don't know, you have multiple different parts of the tube. You have your stem, okay, and then you have your seal, then you have your radiator, and then in the center of this is your actual anode bell, the center bit, and the radiator is attached to it. So you can really see made in the USA right here. This is the tiniest little surface blemish, and for as old as this tube is, I'm in shock how good a condition it is. Now, it's so far down the priority list of things that I need to think about here that I brought this home let's see, what is it? 7 months ago? 6 months ago? And it's been sitting here. We bought it up out of this estate with only one intention. If the filament came up and high voltage held, we were going to sell it. I want to sell this tube. This is a new old stock tube. Now how this is going to work is if somebody comes to me and says they want this tube, I'm like, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in its box, which is designed to house the tube, and this is the way they're transported. And I'm going to send it off to Econco, and I'm going to have Econco third party test this tube. Now, they're going to hold on to that tube until I say yay or nay. And as soon as I can get an inspection and a test and an output on this thing, I'll call you back and be like, cool, this is where we're at, and you pay me. And it goes directly from Econco to you. That way, if there's any problems with this tube whatsoever, you can go talk to them about it. But we know it's been tested and it's certified. This is a brand new USA made tube that's fully rebuildable. As you guys know, the Chinese tubes that are out there that are flooding the market, which if you go and you find something like this on eBay, it can be anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000. You can go get them for Richardson's. The Chinese tubes, the 15s, from anywhere from, like, depending on their quality, 18 to about 25. This is a good tube. It's an American-made tube. Because today, if you buy a ProTec, all you're getting when you buy it from Richardson's is a Chinese tube. Let me look something up. I'll be right back. What I wanted to look up, because it's been a hot minute since I looked. Labs, which we all know are Chinese tubes, but they're tested, and they've got an actual serviceable warranty with them, are $23.99 and 95 cents. They're $2,399.95, so $2,400 plus taxes plus the ride. I was able to find one place that has a 3cx15000a7 iMac that is listed. They want $6,875 for that tube. Me personally, I look at this and I see a $2,800 tube. We're going to get it tested and certified that it's at full output and filament and all that kind of stuff from an independent party, which is about $160 or so, which we'll see how this deal ends up working out. At the end of the day, I think a fair ask for this is $2,800. Of course, I'm open to offers. I mean, if you're serious, don't call me up and offer me $1,000. I just say, hey, thanks for calling, you know. But I'm being reasonable about it, right? So somebody called me up and asked, you know, made me a reasonable offer. I'd very most likely entertain it, because this holds no value to me. My equipment over here either runs 3cx20 or 3cx40, right? This just happened to be sitting there, and as you guys can obviously tell, since I've been sitting on it now for 6-7 months or whatever it's been, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's just a part, right? Just saying. So I'm putting this out there in the digital ether that this beautiful little ProTec needs to go find a new home. It's never been put in anything. I'd feel much more comfortable about everything, and the only way it's going to ever happen is if it goes to a Conco and gets tested first before it comes to anybody out there in the YouTube gargler land. And that's to protect me, and that's to protect you, and that's to protect the whole transaction. That makes sense? So, on that note, you guys know the drill. Here's the phone number. And you all know how to get a hold of me. Call, text, reach out. I'm here. On that note, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. Big shout out to my Patreons. I want to thank them. If you haven't noticed, there hasn't been any ads in this video. That's because of these people right here. Patreon has also made me notified via email that last month they had a big problem with their billing cycle. Okay? If you think you're a Patreon and you haven't gotten notified here in a hot little minute, you might want to go check and make sure your account's valid and come back and rejoin. Just saying. If you've ever learned anything from this channel and you want to get all the behind the scenes content, have access to products like this, the things that come out of here for sale, a solid 48 hours before they actually go into the market, and that's for everything that's for sale, and actually all the YouTube content, plus all the behind the scenes content, which I try to do 2 or 3 pieces a month that are on this scale or bigger. I want to come check us out on Patreon. Get a chance, give me a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, think about subscribing. Always doing fun stuff like this over here. Gentlemen, the ProTec 3cx15000a7 is for sale. Give me a call. I'm here. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm off to do other stuff. Put this in its bag, put it back in the box. I'll wait to hear from one of you guys. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Click, click.